The best chocolate cake ever. It's Sunday, it's sunny, it's warm, it's June, and I'm craving a chocolate cake that we used to make years ago, and it was the best. So I asked my wife, do you have the recipe? And she said, it's in the Joy of Cooking cookbook. So I looked it up, and here we go. And I put all the stuff that I need on the counter. The eggs, cake pans, the brown sugar, the white sugar, the cake and pastry flour, the baking powder, and the butter, the chocolate, of course, and the salt, even the wax paper to go in the pans. This cake, this devil's food cake, devil's chocolate cake, requires 2 pans, and they're not very big, a couple inches thick, 9-inch pans. Aluminum pans, and I put them on the wax paper and draw a circle around them because the wax paper goes in the pan with a little bit of butter and flour and lightly so that the cake will come out easier at the end. So I'm just going to cut the circles and stick them in there and lightly flour and butter them. I put some butter, a little bit, in the pan. I used my fingers and I worked it around the pan and around the edges of the inside, and then I put the wax paper down on top of it and put some more butter on my fingers and worked that in so that the sides and the bottom and the wax paper on both sides is coated with butter. Now I'm going to take a little bit of flour. It's going to be the cake and pastry flour that I'm going to use in the cake, and sprinkle it, dust it over the pan so they're both the same and they don't look like they have wax paper, but they do. It's time to make the chocolate first. That's step 1. So I took 1 egg yolk and put it in there, and I put the whites in there because I'm going to use them later. So that's 1 egg yolk. It's just an ordinary, everyday, large egg. 1 egg yolk. I'm going to use a cup of brown sugar, and the brown sugar is dry, and the milk, the half a cup of milk, is wet. So for you people that aren't aware of this, this is a dry measuring cup, and this is a wet measuring cup. They're not the same. So if you're measuring dry stuff, use the dry measuring cup, and I'm going to use a cup of brown sugar. And if you're using wet stuff, you want to use a wet measuring cup, and I'm going to use a half a cup of milk. And then this is my unsweetened chocolate. Well, sorry, I only had semi-sweet. So that means it's got a little bit of sweetener in it. And each one of those is a half an ounce, and I need 4 ounces. So I'm going to use 8 of those, and they're going in there. I'm going to cook it, instead of over boiling water and trying to steam cook it so it cooks slowly, I'm going to cook it very low, stir it the whole time, and try to make it creamy and thick. As soon as it's thick, I'll shut the heat off and let it cool. Chocolate, 4 ounces, half a cup of milk. You use whatever kind of milk you want, 2%, 3%, whatever you want, skim, but 3% would be my suggestion. A cup of brown sugar. Make sure the brown sugar doesn't have any big giant lumps in it, because it can get hard if it sits in the cupboard too long. And the egg yolk goes in there with no whites. And I'm just stirring it, and it'll gradually get thicker and thicker. And my heat's on 3. Don't know if you can see that, but this is a convection stove. Now for the dry ingredients. So I took 2 cups, level cups, of cake and pastry flour, which is different than all-purpose flour, different than unbleached flour. Cake and pastry flour for this cake. 2 level cups of that. A little bit more, a little bit less might make the world of difference. Then I need a teaspoon of baking powder. This is my baking powder container. Baking soda is different. It comes in an orange Arm & Hammer baking soda, an orange box. They look the same. Baking powder and baking soda help the cake rise, or the cookies rise. Usually you find those in cookies and in cakes, maybe even together. A little bit of this and a little bit of that. But they're both sodium bicarbonate, and the baking soda in the orange box needs an acid, like vinegar or something, to make it activate. Where the baking powder, what we're using in this particular cake, already has the acid in it. Okay? So sometimes you use both of them in a recipe, sometimes you don't. And it's a teaspoon. It's a level teaspoon. This is a teaspoon. It says right on it, 1 teaspoon, and it levels as 1 teaspoon. And then a little bit of salt, and I just used ordinary sea salt out of my sea salt container, a teaspoon of that. That's the dry stuff, and I mix it together. A little review here. I have the chocolate. It's cooling. It's nice and thick. And I have the dry ingredients, and it's been mixed too. Now I'm going to do the butter stuff in my mix master right there. If you don't have one of these, get one. I recommend the Braun Mix Master. There's all different brands out there, but I've had this one forever, and it works great. Nice big bowl to the side. Anyway, I put my 1/2 cup of soft butter in there, and a cup of sugar, and this is fine sugar. I don't have to sift the sugar because it's not regular sugar. It's a 1/2 cup of fine sugar. And you can buy white sugar and organic sugar, cane sugar, all kinds of sugars. So be careful. Probably stay away from the white stuff. And even though this is white, this is cane sugar that's been sifted, and it's very fine. Okay, that goes in there. And here we go. We're going to beat it up till it's smooth. And then we're going to add 1 egg yolk, just the yolk, save the white. Put it in and beat it up, and then do 1 more. So there'll be 2 egg yolks in here, a cup of sugar, and a 1/2 cup of butter. Nice and smooth and creamy. Save the yolks. We need them for later. The 2 egg yolks, the 1 cup of fine sugar, sifted sugar, and the 1/2 cup of soft butter. Not runny, but soft, room temperature. This is a 1/2 cup of milk, a 1/4 cup of water, and a teaspoon of vanilla in that cup. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix the flour in with the butter, a little bit of the flour in with the butter, and then a little bit of that water, vanilla, milk mixture, and then more flour in with the butter, and a little bit more of that milk mixture. A little bit more of that, alternating flour and that milk mixture in with the butter till I've got it all mixed. I'm going to start with the flour and end with the flour. Okay, got that? I'm taking the flour mixture, putting it in with the butter and beating it a little bit. And then I'm adding a little bit of the water and the milk and the vanilla. And then I go back to the flour and alternate flour mix that up a little bit. Try not to get my spoon tangled in with the beater. Get that mixed up, then put a little of this in. And then a little bit of this. Whoops. Whoops. And I want to end with the dry stuff, the flour. So I'll put the rest of this in. And then end with the rest of the dry stuff. And did my mother teach me how to do this? No. Did my wife? No. Why am I doing it? Because I'm addicted to chocolate and sugar. I'm a little hyper. So once this is mixed really well, and if you've made as many cakes as I have in my lifetime, you'd know what that meant. I think this is really mixed perfectly. So now all I have to do is the last step, well almost the last, is to mix the chocolate in with this. So here we go. I better read the directions first though before I just dump that in. And I think the chocolate's supposed to be cold.
What's this thing beeping for?
It's beeping because it's the kind of oven stove that if you put anything on it, it beeps to tell you that there's stuff on it. So like these things should come off.
Nice.
So I'll put them over here. So I got to read the directions because I got to make sure that chocolate is cold before it goes in here. Otherwise it'll turn into one sloppy mess. I've mixed the flour mixture up, the dry ingredients together. I mixed the butter stuff all together. I mixed the little milk and water and vanilla in that little cup. I mixed them all together the right way. It's nice and creamy. Nice and creamy. Now it's time to add the chocolate. And the chocolate is cold pretty much. So it's going in here. Mix it all together. And then there's one more step. I have it all together. There it is, folks. This is what we put in our cake pans. Except for one more thing. Remember there were 3 yolks used? 3 egg yolks? Well, we saved the egg whites in here. So I'm going to beat them up until they form peaks like whipping cream. Beat them with this hand beater. And then I'm going to fold it into the cake batter. And it'll give it air. And it'll be really moist and delicious and scrumptious. Okay, here it is, folks. It has the buttered mixture, the chocolate mixture, the dry mixture, the water and milk and vanilla mixture, the egg white mixture. It's all in here ready to go into the pans. And this is 2 pans, right? 2 cake pans worth. And it goes in the oven at 350 degrees for about 25 minutes. What I do is I poke it after 25 minutes with a knife, and when I pull the blade out, if it's dry, it's done. I bring it out, I take it out and put it on the counter, and I let it get cold. And then I make the icing, and I'll show you how to do that, and put the cake together. I'm making a chocolate cocoa butter icing for the cake. It requires icing sugar, butter at room temperature, a good quality cocoa, a little bit of vanilla, a little dash of salt, and some milk or cream, whatever you prefer. Be careful. Don't add too much the milk or cream, no too much liquid at first. Whip everything together in your whip machine, your Braun whip machine. Whip it all together in that and gradually add the milk until you get the right consistency. And if you use a good quality cocoa, it'll taste even better. How much? It took about 30 minutes to cook the cake. They're not very thick, so it shouldn't take that long. 25 minutes usually. And when you push your knife into the cake, it should come out clean, and it did. So now they're gonna cool, and I'm gonna put the cake together with the icing and gobble it down. So here's the finished product. It is a double layer. There is chocolate icing, chocolate butter cream icing with cocoa in between. Turned out perfectly, and now I'm going to devour it. But remember, it's the best chocolate cake ever, according to The Joy of Cooking and the people that put the recipe in the book. Yeah, so it did turn out to be moist, fluffy, and delicious.
A 10 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
Turn
For
it
sure.
around. Flip it. Looks pretty light and fluffy.
Yeah, it's so good I have to have another piece.
You know, borderline healthy.
Look at
Right?
that. Look at that. Holy cats.
How healthy would you say it is out of 10?
Well, it's got an egg in it.
Got an egg. That's pretty
Yeah.
good. Some butter.
It's got a lot of butter.